All right. F1 season's back. I'm excited for this one. So this is our F1 race review, and we're going to do the Australian Grand Prix. Awesome opening weekend. A race that had complete chaos everywhere you looked. Lando Norris, congrats to him, had pole and held on to win the race, which has always been a challenge for him. But it's Lando Norris taking one, Max Verstappen getting second place, George Russell third. This was such a chaotic race where in Australia, first race of the season, there's like 5 rookies, 5.5 really, with people, and a lot of racers switching teams, like Carlos Sainz now with Williams,
right.
Lewis Hamilton with Ferrari, Kimi Antonelli now with Mercedes. The downpour of rain leading up to the race, in the middle of the race, threw everything just out the window strategy. And a lot what you get in F1 is rain is the ultimate equalizer. Mm-hmm. We saw it happen in this very case where Lando made mistakes, was able to recover. Mm-hmm. Red Bull made mistakes when it came to pitting, and then they were never able to make up for it. Max Verstappen drove his butt off. Lando drove phenomenally well. And it was just an exciting opening weekend, and McLaren walks away with a crucial set of points and a win. And we just see that McLaren has the best car on track, but Max is still going to push that Red Bull car to the limits. Max Verstappen.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I loved this race kicking things off with chaos, because a lot of conversation over the past couple of seasons is like, who really truly has the better car? Because Verstappen's just been impossible to stop.
Yeah,
he's in the mix of everything.
Yeah.
Exactly. But what I loved about this race, and especially Lando coming out on top, Lando's communication style with his team is getting better, because there was so much madness last year for McLaren where like Lando
rules.
Right. Like,
so
and them screwing him over with what's his name, Piastri and stuff.
Oscar Piastri.
Exactly. So I feel like this was very much a statement win for Lando to be able to like have the communication that he wanted, overcome those issues, have the rain and all that mess. Mm-hmm. But McLaren is one of the better cars, and having the rain on the track, even though it makes kind of the control harder, one of the top things you hear about the McLaren car is like the heat. The heat off the track is what can mess with that the most, and that's why there's been so much miscommunication between Lando and his team in terms of like what he needs to do on the track versus what he's feeling. The oil mess ups and all these things. So love that for Lando. Love that for McLaren, even though like parents would be pissed because they're Ferrari fans. But I think Verstappen is going to try to come and bull his way all the way through back to the top. But Lando's got to position himself, and McLaren has to support him to make sure he has the points at the end of this season, because he kind of got snuffed last year.
What was important, it was Lando Norris took first. Now, Oscar Piastri made one big mistake, couldn't recover. He ended up finishing 9th, but they started 1, 2, 3. And Verstappen right in the beginning overtook Oscar Piastri. You saw, and to your point, we saw the issues, and it did happen at a point where McLaren was with Oscar Piastri 3 seconds back of Lando. They said, go ahead, race. And when he's within a half second back, they said, hold position.
Yeah.
Oscar stay second, Lando stay first. That's the right move. Especially in the rain, you don't want your top 2 drivers, you don't want Lando and Oscar battling it out.
Right.
Where if you're too aggressive at one point, you make one mistake, you can go into the wall, which we saw happen to 6 different racers, only 5 different racers, only 14 guys end up finishing. No, 6. Sorry. Redo the math. But you don't want them battling it out, because you can go from having first place and walking away with 27 points as they did.
Or losing both racers. 0
points, exactly, and crashing your car. That was right. I feel for Oscar Piastri, because at his home circuit, this race was in Melbourne. He is Australian, driving so well. Him and Lando literally made the same mistake on the same turn, on the same lap. He just got into the track a couple seconds later than Lando didn't have as much time to recover, and still fought his way out of the grass.
Yeah.
Past Lewis Hamilton on that final lap to go from 10th to 9th. And just, you see that anger, it sets him up and McLaren up well for the China Grand Prix next week. I just feel for him, but that's what you wanted from Lando. Yeah. And I think in a way that McLaren was smart with this, where you go with Lando, the more experienced driver. This will be Oscar's 3rd full season.
That's what it is.
In the rain, with all these variables, with Max Verstappen breathing down your neck. You want the guy that's been in more high-pressure situations more and just knows how to drive in the rain. And that's what they went with Lando. I still don't know who their number 1 is, because Oscar's car, by all means, was faster. He had a better pace. But they get a first-place win with Lando. This is something McLaren's going to have to manage race by race, and maybe mid-season have the definitive, you're number 1, you're number 2, and they have to stick with that. But you see McLaren making that big jump.
Yeah, I think that decision had to be made already before the season started, because it almost put that whole team in upheaval when they were in crucial point-grabbing moments in races.
Yeah.
And you make the perfect point here. Oscar's got the better car. Lando has the better decisiveness when it comes to what he needs to do on the track.
Yeah.
And I think that you also saw that in the rain, because the rain knocked out a number of rookies from this race. For one, for two,
Isaac Hadjar crashed on the formation lap. Jack Doohan on the opening lap, just like 5 turns in. We saw Liam Lawson
turn 5 was
go into the
crippling
wall.
for a number of guys.
Gabriel Bortoletti went into the wall too.
Right. So like knowing that and knowing the tracks that are coming up and like what the McLaren car is better at managing, definitely has the better model to manage majority of the F1 tracks on the season, but it's going to come down to that decisiveness, and Lando's so good with it. So I think they need to stick with Lando being one, let Oscar continue to grow in these situations, and then the races that they can bait him to win for, then like let that be what it is. But that indecision almost cost them so much last year.
Yeah, and especially in time in the rain, you can't mess around.
No way at all.
On a drier course, Ferrari still. I don't know, and like that's again with the rain, even how we saw a finish like Kimi Antonelli, we're talking about the rookies that raced bad. With him in a Mercedes, for him to finish shows how difficult it was. Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, one of the best drivers. He went into the wall. So it showed how many errors there were. Alex Albon of Williams finishing 5th. It shows how the rain is the equalizer. But with Ferrari, like the quotes from Lewis, it was very tricky. It went a lot worse than I thought it would go. The car was really, really hard to drive.
Yeah.
He's still figuring out the car. Ferrari is going to have to just be so urgent with getting it back on track and making sure Leclerc and Lewis, because they have the second fastest car on the grid. They need to continue to be in the fight. This is not the start they wanted, but the rain ruined a lot of plans. This race was so difficult. It still leaves like so much to mystery.
Yeah.
I still don't I think McLaren, they're not a half second better than Red Bull. They're definitely a full second and more.
Yeah.
But the rain and Max and his experience, kind of makes that a wash. I don't think Ferrari is the 10th best car on the grid and Leclerc finishing as far back as he did. I don't think Williams is a top 5 car. I don't think Lance Stroll is a top 10 driver at all.
True.
But that's when we get away from the rain. We'll see. Just Ferrari still has a question marks. This was such a race where you knew there were going to be a lot of accidents, especially with the rain. But Lewis is figuring out his car on the go. He's figuring out communication with his team, like the language barrier that
Shifting
he's
is way
facing.
different from Mercedes to Ferrari. That was a big issue for him.
And you see McLaren still figuring out how they're going to treat it. And with Red Bull, they still have to figure out who their number 2 is, because Liam Lawson made some mistakes and didn't finish either.
Yeah. I think the other thing, too, is that we all kind of got ahead of ourselves. We're like, okay, he's reuniting with one of his racing coaches. He's at Ferrari. There was all this hype behind it. But also considering the track in Melbourne, you're talking about a track that doesn't have many extended straightaways. That's where Ferrari really pops up and performs. When you talk about speed, they're not the tight turn vehicle.
Yeah.
And when they are, yes, Lewis Hamilton has the experience to kind of manipulate that in Ferrari's favor, but not first race, not when you're still getting acclimated to the car, the communication style and the shifting. So I think that, Silverstone is his race, but I think when you get to other tracks that benefit the Ferrari vehicle, you're going to be able to actually tell where things stand and how he's going to be able to develop with that team. But you're talking about a very curvy track, a lot of tight turns, not many long straightaways. Ferrari performs on extended straightaways.
And that's what they're going to get, the Shanghai circuit. There's 2 long straights, third shorter one. There's the high-speed chicanes like turn 7 and 8. That's what's going to be fun to see McLaren and Ferrari battle out. That race is at 3 a.m. East Coast time, though. I'm not staying up.
I was going to
I'm not.
say, are you staying in the mix for that?
Nope.
We have to as a team. We'll set an alarm, wake up at least for an hour, and go back to bed.
All right, fine.
Okay.
Deal. I like that.